Hey friends, welcome back to Clear Not. Today's episode is going to be a vulnerable one because I want to let you into something I've been struggling with in real time. I call it having a fat day. And before you click away thinking this is just about weight, hang with me because what I want to talk about is much bigger. It's about shame, perfectionism, progress, and what it really looks like to take clear enough steps forward when you're not feeling good about yourself. So let me start at the beginning. Back in December, I finally got an official diagnosis for something I've suspected for a long time: depression, anxiety, and ADHD. Honestly, I wasn't surprised by any of those words. What did surprise me was how hard it's been to figure out the right treatment plan. There are lots of medications that treat depression, anxiety, and ADHD together. But here's the problem. I also have high blood pressure, and many of those meds make high blood pressure worse. So my primary care doctor has been hesitant. My psychiatrist suggested Adderall, but the risk of pushing my already high numbers high? Not great. So we've been working to get my blood pressure under control. I've been on medication. I've been trying to exercise more. I've been trying to eat better. I've lost a little bit of weight, but not enough to make a meaningful dent in the bigger picture. Then the blood work came back, and the numbers were higher than either of us wanted. Lipids, cholesterol, everything. And let me tell you, I spiraled hard. All of those insecurities that sit just under the surface, the ones that you can usually shove aside long enough to get through the day, suddenly they had a megaphone. I felt gross, bloated, ugly. I know I've never been a particularly handsome guy, but this was different. This was discomfort in my own skin. My body felt out of control. Like no matter what I did, it wasn't enough. And that's what my wife and I call a fat day. Now, I know that fat day isn't the most elegant phrase, and it's not meant as a judgment of anybody else's body. For us, it's shorthand. It means a day when you're just so uncomfortable in your own body that everything else feels harder. It's the day when your clothes feel too tight, the day you catch a glimpse in the mirror and cringe, the day when that little voice in your head just won't shut up about how much you failed. And let me be clear, this isn't just about the scale. Fat days are about insecurity. They're about shame. They're about that nagging sense that you're not enough. And if you've ever had one, you know how much it messes with your mood, your motivation, your relationships, everything. That's where I was. And it sent me right into the old perfectionist mindset. See, weight loss, or really any kind of personal growth, can so easily become like a New Year's resolution. You know the cycle. January rolls around and you say, that's it. This is the year. I'm cutting out all sugar. No more eating out. I'm going to the gym every day. And then by February, you're done. I've done this so many times. I've made these grand promises. I'll use up my reward points in the fast food place. Then I'll delete the app forever and get a fresh start. Or I already blew it this week, so I may as well write it out and start again Monday. This is perfectionism in disguise. It whispers that unless I do everything perfectly, eat perfectly, exercise perfectly, live perfectly, then I may as well not try at all. And here's the truth. Perfectionism isn't about high standards. It's about fear. It's about being so afraid of failure or of being exposed as not good enough that you either overcorrect and burn yourself out, or you quit before you even give yourself a chance. That's what fat days often trigger for me. Now here's the part where I had to stop myself mid-spiral and say, okay, Drew, you talk about this stuff all the time. You can't just sit here in shame. You need to practice what you preach. What's the next clear enough step? And in that moment, the next step was simple. Delete the restaurant apps on my phone. So I did. Right then, while I was out walking and dictating notes to myself. One by one, I deleted them. And let me tell you, it felt surprisingly good. Did it magically fix my health? Of course not. But it gave me back a little bit of agency, a little bit of power, a little bit of momentum. And that's the whole point. Clear enough doesn't mean perfect. It means knowing the direction you want to go and then identifying one concrete action you can take today to move toward it. For me, that meant deleting apps. For you, it might mean something totally different, but the principle holds. Now let's back up and talk about shame for a minute, because this is where many of us get trapped. I grew up in a religious community, and I saw firsthand how guilt and shame can be used to push people into good behavior. And I'll be honest, shame is a powerful motivator. It works for a while, but it's toxic. Shame says you're not worthy until you lose the weight. Shame says you don't matter until the blood work looks good. Shame says you're less than until you hit the goal. And that's a lie. Yes, I want to be healthier. Yes, I want more energy. Yes, I want to be around for my kids. But I don't want to build those goals on a foundation of shame, because shame will push you, but it won't sustain you. Eventually, it breaks you down. What I want instead are more powerful yeses. Yes to time with my wife. Yes to playing with my kids without getting winded. Yes to having the energy to do good work at my job. Yes to living a long life where I can keep showing up for the people I love. Those yeses are far stronger than shame. Another shift I'm working on is learning to celebrate progress, even when it doesn't look like perfection. Here's what that looks like in real life. This week, I exercised 5 days. That's a win. Old me would have focused on 2 days. I didn't exercise and called it a failure. But the truth is, 5 days is progress. I've lost 2 or 3 pounds. That's a win. Old me would have said, yeah, but 10 years ago, I could have lost 10 pounds in a month without even trying. So this doesn't count. But the truth is, my body is different now. My metabolism is different. And 2 or 3 pounds still matters. Progress over perfection. That's the mantra I'm trying to live into. Because the perfectionist voice will always say, you're not there yet. You're still a failure. But if I can train myself to see progress as meaningful, even when it's small, then I can keep moving forward instead of giving up. Of course, believing progress is enough isn't easy, especially when the gap between where I am now and where I want to be feels so big. For me, that number is about 58 pounds. My goal weight is 212, and right now I'm around 270. That feels like a mountain. But the clear enough mindset reminds me, I don't need to know exactly how I'll lose 58 pounds. I don't need to map out every step. I just need to know what the next right step is, and then take it. That's it. And the next step, for me, is simple. Delete the restaurant apps. Set alarms in the morning to make sure I get up and move. That's enough for today. Let's talk about self-talk for a minute, because if I'm honest, my self-talk on fat days is brutal. I say things to myself I would never say to another human being. I call myself a loser. I tell myself I'm disgusting. I convince myself I'll never be enough. And the craziest part, I believe it in the moment. But here's what I'm trying to practice, asking, what would I say if I was talking to a close friend this way? Would I talk to a close friend this way? If a friend came to me and said, man, I just got terrible blood work back. I feel gross. I feel like a failure. What would I say? I'd call him a goobhead. And that might sound funny, but for me, goobhead is my strongest insult. I don't swear. I don't like tearing people down. So if I say, dude, you're being a real goobhead, what I mean is, stop being ridiculous. You're not a failure. Then I'd remind him of all the reasons he's valuable, that his worth as a person has nothing to do with his cholesterol numbers, that he's stronger than he thinks, that he can make changes one step at a time. If that's what I'd say to a friend, then why is it so hard to turn that compassion towards myself? Well, that's the work. Replacing the cruel voice in my head with the same kindness I offer anyone else. This ties right into my core values for Clear Enough: integrity, growth, thoughtfulness. Integrity means I don't pretend everything is fine when it's not. It means I'll tell you the truth, even if the truth is messy. Today, the truth is, I'm insecure. I'm struggling. I'm having a fat day. Growth means I refuse to stay stuck. I don't have to go from 0 to perfect. I just need to take the next step forward. Deleting apps, setting alarms, going for walks. Progress over perfection. And thoughtfulness means I try to be intentional with how I talk to myself and others. That includes catching myself when my self-talk turns cruel and choosing instead to speak with compassion. Now, let's circle back to shame, because I know some people will say, but Drew, Shame works for me. I beat myself up and it gets me moving. And sure, it might work in the short term, but it's not sustainable. Shame doesn't build resilience. Shame doesn't teach you how to get back up after a setback. Shame doesn't create joy. What shame does is push you into extremes, all or nothing thinking, crash diets, punishing workouts, quick fixes that don't last. And then when you inevitably fail to keep it up, shame doubles down. See, you're worthless. You'll never change. That's the cycle, and it's exhausting. So instead of shame, I'm learning to root my motivation in love. Love for my wife, love for my kids, love for myself, even on the days when I don't feel lovable. Because love sustains. One of the hardest lessons for me is believing that progress is enough. I'm wired to think of things in extremes. ADHD doesn't help with that. Either I'm all in, hyper-focused, building the best, most beautiful spreadsheet in the world, or I'm paralyzed, avoiding the project entirely. So when it comes to health, I tend to swing the same way. Either I'm on a crash diet, exercising obsessively, or I'm doing nothing. But the clear enough mentality says, enough isn't everything. Enough is enough. If I walk for 15 minutes tomorrow morning, that's enough. If I skip the drive-thru once this week, that's enough. If I choose water over soda at lunch, that's enough. Will those single actions change my body overnight? Of course not. But stacked up, day after day, they add up, and they're sustainable. Now, if I want to acknowledge something that often gets overlooked in these conversations, genetics. My whole family is big. We've got a genetic disposition toward weight gain. That's real, and it's part of the puzzle. But here's the tricky part. I can acknowledge genetics without using them as an excuse. It's true that my body might fight harder to lose weight than someone else's. It's true that medication might complicate things. It's true that life circumstances might make it harder to exercise or cook healthy meals. But none of those truths erase my ability to make my choices. I can still delete the apps. I can still go for walks. I can still take one step at a time. That's ownership. Not pretending it's easy, not ignoring the challenges, but also not giving away my power by saying, well, this is just how it is. Let's talk numbers for a second. I weigh 270. My goal is 212. That's 58 pounds to lose. Now, if I let myself focus only on those numbers, it feels impossible. But here's the reframe. What if I just focus on the first 5 pounds? What if I just focus on building the habit of morning walks? What if I just focus on deleting the apps and cooking 2 more meals at home this week? Those things I can do. And when I do them, the numbers will take care of themselves. Maybe slower than I want. Maybe differently than I expect. But they'll move. The scale can measure my weight. Blood work can measure my cholesterol. But only I can measure my integrity, my growth, my thoughtfulness. Those are the metrics that matter most. Let me circle back to compassion, because this is where the rubber meets the road. If a close friend told me he was struggling with his body, I'd tell him, you're stronger than you think. Your worth is not defined by a number. You're allowed to take this one step at a time. You're loved, no matter what. So why is it so hard to say those same things to ourselves? Partly because we hear our own negative thoughts first. Before anyone else could criticize us, we've already criticized ourselves. Before anyone else could call us failures, we've already called ourselves worse. But the truth is, we need to become our own friend, our own ally, our own encourager, because there are plenty of people in the world who will tear us down. We don't need to join them. So let's bring it back to fat days. Fat days are real. They happen. They're uncomfortable. And they can trigger spirals of shame and perfectionism. But fat days don't get the last word. On a fat day, I can still take a clear enough step. Delete the apps. Go for a walk. Drink some water. On a fat day, I can still choose compassion over cruelty. Remind myself I'm a goob head if I'm being too hard on myself. On a fat day, I can live my values of integrity, growth, and thoughtfulness. Because the measure of success isn't whether I feel perfect in my body today, The measure of success is whether I took the next right step. Here's the bigger picture. For so much of my life, I've let the story in my head be, I'm a loser. Everyone's about to find out I'm not enough. That story shows up in my depression. It shows up in my ADHD. It shows up in my weight struggles. But Clear Enough is about writing a new story, a story where I don't have to know everything to begin, a story where imperfect progress is still worth celebrating, a story where compassion beats shame every single time. And that story, it's worth telling. It's worth living. So if you've stuck with me this far, you know this episode has been raw, messy, a little bit vulnerable. And that's on purpose. Because fat days or insecure days, they aren't tidy. They don't fit into bullet points or polished TED Talks. They're emotional. They're complicated. And if I'm going to ask you to take imperfect action, then I need to model it myself, even if it's uncomfortable for me. So let's zoom out for a second. Weight loss, body image, health, all of these are just one expression of a bigger struggle, waiting until we feel ready. We tell ourselves, I'll start eating healthy once the holidays are over. I'll get back to the gym when work slows down. I'll make a budget when I finally feel organized. I'll pursue that dream project when life calms down. We wait for the perfect time, the perfect conditions, the perfect version of ourselves. But here's the truth. There's no such thing. Life never slows down. There's never a perfect time. And we never wake up one day magically free of fear, self-doubt, or struggle. Which means if we wait for perfect, we might wait forever. That's why imperfect action matters. When I deleted those restaurant apps mid-walk, was it a perfect solution? No. I could re-download them right now if I really wanted to. It's not foolproof, but it was imperfect action, and it mattered because in that moment, I proved to myself that I can act. I don't have to spiral forever. I can make a choice right now that moves me closer to where I want to be. That's power. That's progress. And that's enough. This is the heartbeat of Clear Enough. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to have the whole plan. You don't even have to believe in yourself 100%. You just have to be clear enough about the next right step. For me, it was about deleting apps and setting alarms. For you, it might be sending that email you've been avoiding, going for a 10-minute walk, drinking one glass of water, telling a friend you're struggling. Whatever it is, the step doesn't have to be big. It just has to be clear enough. I want to share something I've seen over and over in my own life, and maybe you'll recognize it in yours. It's what I call drift. Drift is what happens when you don't make intentional choices, when you don't take even the smallest step toward who you want to be. Instead, you float. You go along with other people's goals, other people's timelines, other people's definitions of success. And the longer you drift, the farther you get from where you actually want to be. I saw this in law school. So many of my classmates were killing themselves to land prestigious jobs. They were chasing internships, clerkships, partnerships, opportunities that looked good on paper. But if you ask them, is that what you really want? A lot of them couldn't answer. They weren't pursuing their own goals. They were drifting towards somebody else's. I've done it too, and it's exhausting. Clear Enough is the antidote to drift. It's the decision to say, I don't have to know everything, but I know this one thing, and it matters to me right now, and I'm going to step toward it. Here's the surprising thing. Fat days, or other kinds of insecure days, can actually be teachers. They force us to stop pretending we've got it all together. They expose the gap between who we want to be and who we are. And if we're willing to pay attention, insecure days remind us we're not invincible. We cannot white knuckle our way through everything. We need compassion as much as we need discipline. Small steps matter more than big plans. Do we like insecure days? No, they're uncomfortable. But maybe that discomfort is the point. Maybe it's what keeps us from drifting. Let's get practical for just a minute. How do you actually build habits without falling into the trap of perfectionism? Here's what I'm learning. Start small. If your goal is to run a marathon, start by walking for 10 minutes. Anchor it. Tie the new habit to something you already do. For me, it might be after I brush my teeth at night, I do 10 push ups. Make it visible. Put reminders where you can see them, alarms, sticky notes, whatever it takes. Celebrate progress, even if it's tiny, especially if it's tiny, because progress compounds. Give yourself grace. Missing one day doesn't erase all your progress. So get back up. Take the next step. That's how habits grow. Not from shame, not from perfection, from consistent, imperfect action. I want to acknowledge something vulnerable. Sometimes I imagine an audience in my head. When I'm on an insecure day, when I'm having a fat day and I spiral, the audience is critical. They're judging me. They're disappointed. They're about to find out I'm a loser. But what if I change the audience? What if the audience in my head is supportive, cheering me on, saying, "You're stronger than you think. You've got this. Keep going." That's the audience I want to cultivate, both in my head and here in this community. So on days like today, I come back to my values: integrity, tell the truth, admit I'm struggling, be real, growth, take the next step, even if it's small, even if it's messy, thoughtfulness, speak kindly, treat myself the way I'd treat a friend. If I can live those values on fat days, then I can live them any day. So let me turn this back to you. What's your version of a fat day? Maybe it's not about your body. Maybe it's about your work, your parenting, your finances, your relationships. What's the area where you feel insecure, where you hear the cruel voice in your head telling you you're not enough? And what would it look like to take one clear enough step in that area today? Not 20 steps, not the whole plan, just one. Here's what I hope that you take away from today. Fat days happen. They don't define you. Shame is a terrible motivator. Compassion lasts longer. Progress over perfection is enough. Drift is dangerous. Intentional choices keep you on course. Clear enough isn't about seeing the whole path. It's about taking the next right step. That's it. That's the whole deal. And I'm still figuring this out. I don't have all the answers. I still spiral sometimes. I still get stuck, but I'm learning and I'm choosing to share the process, not just the finished product, because maybe my imperfect action will inspire yours. So if you're on a fat day right now, hear me say this. You are stronger than you think. You are loved no matter what, and you are clear enough to take the next right step.